Beruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Chaf Vav Amud Beis, starting with Chaf Vav Amud Aleph, 4 lines from the bottom. The Seif of the Mishnah Daf Chaf Gimel brings Rabbi Eloi B'Shem Rabbi Eliezer. He hears 3 different statements in the name of Rabbi Eliezer that Rabbi Eliezer had said. First one being in regard to a non-residential karpef. The Tanakama holds that it can be up to a base society. It can then encircle an area of base society, which comes out to be 5,000 square amos. But he hears Rabbi Eliezer saying that it could be up to a kur, which is 30 so, 15 times the size, which is 75,000 square amos. The next 2 statements is what we're going to discuss. The second one being, we know the Chachamim said when there are batim that share the same chatzeiros, in order to metaltel from a bias to a chatzer or vice versa, then all of the residents must make an erev chatzeiros together, enjoining them to own the chatzer as one bailus. If one person does not mishtatef in the erev chatzeiros, then it prohibits all of the other ones to carry from their bias to the chatzer and vice versa. The Chacham made a takana that a person who was not included in the erev chatzeiros can mevatil his reshus of the chatzer, which would enable everybody in the chatzer to carry from their bias to the chatzer and vice versa. And also, he himself can carry from their bias to the chatzer and vice versa as an oreach, like everybody else who would be a guest. They, says Rabbi Eliezer, can carry from his bias to their chatzer, but he cannot carry from the bias to the chatzer, because if he did, that would show that he's not really mevatil the reshus, whereby is going to be then a bittul that had no consequence. Says the Gemara, V'chein shamati heimenu, quoting the Mishnah, Rabbi Eloi says, I heard from Rabbi Eliezer, Anshe chatzer sheshochach echod v'lo erev beisoy oser, that the Anshe chatzer who made an erev chatzeiros together, one person forgot to make an erev chatzeiros with them, so he relinquishes the rights to his chatzer. His portion of the chatzer, he's mevatil. So he says that for him to go from his bias to the chatzer is prohibited. Otherwise, it didn't show that he's really relinquishing the rights to the chatzer. However, Rabbi Eloi says in Rabbi Eliezer that they could carry from his bias to the chatzer. Ask the Gemara v'hatnan, but it says in the Mishnah later on, Beisoy oser lahoitzu lahachnis. In the same scenario, where one person is then mevatil his reshus of the chatzer, it states that it's prohibited from going out from his bias to the chatzer, ulahachnis, from the chatzer into the bias. Loi ulahen, not only he himself, but even the other residents cannot carry from his bias into the chatzer and vice versa. Answers the Gemara, Rav Huna b'reid Rav Yoshua Amar Rav Sheshes, Loi kasha, it's not a difficulty. On top of Chaf Vav Amud Beis, Ha Rabbi Eliezer v'ha Rabbanon. Our Mishnah is Lefi Rabbi Eliezer, whereas the Mishnah Lekamon is according to the Rabbanon. And Rav Sheshes goes on to explain, Kishetimtza loimar ledivrei Rabbi Eliezer mevatel reshus chatzeiroi reshus beiso bitil. If you'll analyze, you'll say that the words of Rabbi Eliezer is that one who is mevatil his reshus of the chatzer, implicitly he's coming to also mevatil the reshus of his bias. L'Rabbanan ha'mevatil reshus chatzer reshus beisa lo bitul. Whereas the Rabbanan would say that if he is mevatil the reshus of the chatzer, he does not implicitly also mevatil the reshus of his bias. And that's going to be then the explanation between the 2 Mishnayos. That's how Rav Sheshes explains it. Ask the Gemara Pshita. That's Pashit. That is the Machloikis Beineim. Again, when one is mevatil the chatzah, does that also include his bias or not? But the Gemara says that's Pasha. Why did he have to say Kishetim Tzaloimar? Omar Rachava Ono v'Rav Huna Bar Chinina Targimna. I, says Rav Rachva, together with Chanina, we interpreted Rav Shesh's explanation by saying Kishetim Tzaloimar as follows: Lo nitzrecha ela lechamisha sheshruim bechotzer echad v'shachach echad mehem v'lo erev. In a situation where you had 5 residents that shared the same chotzer, 4 of them made an avchat, but 1 forgot to do so. L'div Rabbi Eliezer kishehu mevatel rishusoi eino tzorich levatel kol echad ve'echad. According to Rabbi Eliezer, when he was mevatel his rishus in front of 1, that was enough. He didn't have to go ahead and mevatel his rishus in front of every single person in the chotzer. But according to Rabbanon, when he was mevatel his rishus in front of 1, he must go now in front of each resident, and mevatel his rishus. So says the Gemara that this is what it was necessary Rav Sheshes to say. In other words, that which Rabbi Eliezer says that is ba'ayin toiva, ba'ayin yafe, that he's mevatel his chotz, he's mevatel also his bias, so too then spill over to the same idea over here as well. If he's mevatel in front of 1, we say that's enough, as if he's mevatel in front of everybody. Whereas the Chachamim who say that in our Mishnah, when it says that one is mevatel his chotzer, he's not mevatel his bias. So over here too, he wouldn't be doing so in a ayin yafa fashion, and therefore he was mevatel his chotzer. He's mevatel then his rishus rather. He's also not only in front of 1, he must do so in front of all of the other residents. Kiman azloho. To whom does this go like? The Tanya, like the following brisa. There's a brisa that says exactly like this: Chamisha sheshruim bechotzer echad. When you have 5 residents that are dwelling together in using 1 chotzer, v'shochach echad mehem v'lo irev, and 1 of the 5 forgot to be included in the Erev Chatzeros. Kishehu mevatel rishuso ein tzarich levatel rishus l'kol echad ve'echad. When he's mevatel the rishus in front of 1, he does not have to mevatel the rishus in front of everybody. Kiman, like who does this follow? Rabbi Eliezer, like Rabbi Eliezer. So the Gemara says, Rav Kahana masni hochi. This is how Rav Kahana explained when Rav Sheshes says kishitim tzaloimar. He was explaining that which we're saying is the machlekes between our Mishnah and the Mishnah Kamon. Again, that Rabbi Eliezer says when you mevatel your chotzer, your mevatel included in that your bias, because you do so ba'ayin yafe. Then that would also be in the similar case when one is mevatel his rishus in front of 1. Then it's like he's mevatel in front of everybody. He doesn't have to go ahead and specify in front of each and every person. And when it comes to the Chachamim, that the Chachamim who said that he's not mevatil be'ayin yafe, so when he's mevatil his chotz, he's not mevatil his bias, then so too over here, when it comes to one who is mevatil his rishus in front of 1, it's not enough only in front of 1. He has to go in front of every single resident and mevatil his rishus. Rav Yomi Masechet Eruvin. Rav Yomi explains Rav Sheshes as not going on the Mishnah, but going on this brisa itself, as follows when he said Kishitim Tzaloimar. Kiman azloho. Like whom does this follow? This following brisa, the Tanya. Hey sheshruyim bechotzer echod v'shochach echad mehem v'lo erev. 5 who dwell using the same chotzer, and they all made Erev Chatzos except for 1 who forgot to make an Erev Chatzos together with them. When he then is mevatel his rishus, he does not have to go ahead and mevatel his rishus in front of everybody. It was enough that he's mevatel his rishus in front of 1. Kiman, like whom does this follow? Omar Rav Huna bar Yehuda, Omar Rav Sheshes. It was here that Rav Sheshes said, Kiman kirebi Eliezer. Says the Gemara Vayter, Omar le Rav Papa le Abai. Rav Papa asked the following question in regard to what we just said. Once we tell you that we said that Rabbi Eliezer says that you're be'ayin yafe mevatil, and therefore when you're mevatil the chotz, you're mevatil the bias. The Rabbi Eliezer, Omar loy mevatilna. But if he says explicitly that he's not mevatil the bias, or Or conversely, l'Rabbanan, I amr vatilna. If the Rabbanan, who normally say when you're mevatil the chatzir, you are not mevatil the bias, if he says he explicitly is mevatil the bias, what is going to be the din? My time of Rabbi Eliezer. What is the reason Rabbi Eliezer? Let's explain the following study. Mishud deksav, is it because that he holds that hamavatil rishus chatzeiroi rishus beiso bitul, when one is mevatil his chatzir, is mevatil the rishus of his bias. But here in this situation, he explicitly says that he's mevatil. He's not mevatil the bias, and therefore it will be chal because it's explicit. Or is the reason Rabbi Eliezer says that normally implicit in his bittul of the chatzir includes the bias is because that a person cannot live in a bias without the chatzir. In other words, the chatzir is an intrinsic part of his bias. And therefore, when he does explicitly say that he's not mevatil, then he doesn't have the strength, he doesn't have the believability to do so. Even though he says, I'm living here, then we still say that he doesn't really then have the wherewithal, the strength to be able to do so. And therefore his statement is inconsequential that he's living there. Rather, it's batil. The opposite. Rather, he's not mevatil because it explicitly says he's not mevatil the bias. Conversely, the Rabbanon, when they say that he says, in a situation where he says that he's mevatil the bias, my time with Rabbanan. Let's go analyze the Rabbanan. What's the normal reason why they say that it is not batul? Is it mishum deksavre de mevatel v'shus chatzir v'shus beis lo bitel v'ayomer vatilna? Is only because it's implicit. But if he explicitly says that he is mevatel the bias, then it's effective. Or dilmo time with Rabbanan mishum de loy ovid inish de mesalik nafshei legam b'bayis v'chatzir. Or do we say that the reason the Rabban is because a person is not mesalik himself completely from the bias and the chatzir, and therefore he's merely a guest by them. And when he says he is mevatil the bias, so then he's not believed. He doesn't have the strength to do so, and therefore, indeed, we say that it's not batul. So that's the Rav Papa's question to Abaye. What happens again when the Rabbi Eliezer says that he is not mevatil the bias? And what happens if the Rabbanan, according to Rabbanan, if he says he is mevatil the bias? Or Marle, Abaye responds to Rabbi Papa. Bein le Rabban le Rabbi Eliezer. According to both, Kaven de Gali, Daite Gali. If he explicitly states one way or the other, then you follow what he explicitly says. And therefore, again, according to Rabbi Eliezer, if he explicitly says not mevatil the bias, then it's not batul. And according to Rabbi Chachamim, if he says that he is mevatil the bias, then it is batul. The Gemara now quotes the last statement of the Mishnah, which is the third statement that Rabbi Eloi heard in the name of his Rabbi Eliezer. V'chein shamati mimenu sheyotzim bar kavlin ba'pesach. I heard from Rabbi Eliezer that one can mekayim mitzvahs moror. In the time of the Beis Hamikdash, when we had Korban Pesach, there was a mitzvah di'araisa to eat moror together with the Korban Pesach. Bizmanenu, we don't have a Korban Pesach, there's a mitzvah di'rabanan to eat on Leil HaSeder moror. The Mishnah states in Psochim there are 5 different yirokos that a person can use to mekayim mitzvahs moror. So he hears in the name of Rabbi Eliezer that there's a 6th item that a person can use for moror called akravlin. Some explain that to mean that it is a lashon of akravlin, an akrav, a scorpion, because the leaf is the same shape as a scorpion and it's bitter. Ask the Gemara, my akavlin. The Gemara asks, what is this? Omaresh Lokish Atzavto Charuzioso. It is the vine that grows around the palm tree that is a bitter type of herb, bitter type of leaf, and this vine itself can be used, according to Rabbi Eliezer, to be used for moror. Hadron aloch oisin pasin.